I was a bit all over the place in June in terms of reading. I don't know, the books that I read were not that exciting for me personally, and as a result of that, this video is going to be all over the place, so just consider yourself warned. So the first book that I read in June is Gliff by Ali Smith. I do have a reading vlog reading this book here on the channel, and if you watch that video, you know that my feelings were very mixed when it came to this book. And as I was saying in that video, I think I was very taken aback by the fact that somehow I didn't really realize that this was a dystopian novel, even though it quite literally says on the back of the book, but that never kind of clicked to me until I was probably 100 pages into the book and I was understanding what was happening, and I was like, oh, okay, this is the direction in which we're going, cool. But the first 100 or so pages, I was very lost because I didn't necessarily understand what was happening. I will say though, the writing style, beautiful. Also, the way in which Ali Smith is explaining certain linguistic concepts and certain words and their meanings, I thought were really cool in this type of book, and I wished we had more of that. Another thing that I really appreciated is the whole discussion on AI and just how technology advancements seem to be happening very quickly and very rapidly, and we are relying more and more on our devices and on AI and stuff like that. And I just thought that was such an important discussion to have in such a novel. I really resonated with that part, and I'm very happy that the author chose to include those types of discussions into this book. Now let me tell you a bit about the plot of this book and where I was a bit lost. So we are following these two siblings whose mom is working pretty much outside of their country, like she's in another country working and she somehow disappeared or something along those lines. One day when they get home, they see this like weird red line that's painted in front of their house, and in that moment these two siblings and their mom's partner, boyfriend, we don't know exactly who he is, leave. They all decide to embark on this journey to just go find their mom. And very early on, Leaf is realizing that he can't really travel with these two siblings outside of the country because he's not technically their legal guardian and he's not their father. So it would be very difficult, and he decides to leave these two siblings in a quote unquote safe house. This safe house is completely empty, so it doesn't have any furniture or stuff like that, and Leaf leaves these two kids there with some tins of food and some money, with the promise that he's going to come back in like a certain number of days. In the first couple of days, they just like stay in the house and they explore this new environment that they are in. But after a couple of days, they start to go outside and they make friends with one of their neighbors whose dad has a horse, or like multiple horses, and they buy this horse from this guy's dad. They name the horse Gliff, which is actually the name of the novel, and then just like a lot of questionable weird things happen with these characters. We have a time jump and we actually get to see them working and be part of this totalitarian system that they were thrust into. So yeah, these are my thoughts on Gliff. I am interested in reading other books from this author because this was my first Ali Smith novel, and yeah, I'm quite intrigued by their writing style. Next up, I read Yumi and the Nightmare Painter by Brandon Sanderson. I just love this cover so much. I'm heartbroken that I couldn't get this one in the first printing when they were making a hardcover, but nonetheless, I finally read Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, and the concept for this book was so interesting to me. I've watched like other videos and other reviews talking about this book, and I never quite understood what it was actually about. This was my fourth or fifth Brandon Sanderson book. I read Yumi, and I also read the Mistborn trilogy era one. So I guess this is the fifth book that I'm reading from Brandon Sanderson, and still to this day, I am so just like overwhelmed when you reach 90% of the book and you still don't know what's happening, and then you get the download in those like last 10% of the book. I think that's called a Sander launch from Sanderson and Avalanche. But yeah, this was very unexpected, and I was very surprised with what was the explanation for everything in the end. So, this book is following two characters in two separate worlds. We are following Yumi in her world, and she lives in a type of world in which everything is like very, very hot, and you have weird, like, vegetation that's kind of mutated because of how hot the environment in which she lives in is. And then you also follow Painter, who lives in this very magenta and bluish kind of world. It is always very dark, and there are these nightmares that are just flowing through the night to, I guess, feed off of people that have nightmares or people that are dreaming about these nightmares. Anyway, it's a whole thing. Long story short, you have a bit of a switcheroo, and after some events, Painter wakes up in Yumi's body, and they don't really know what's happening, and they have to figure out why this switcheroo is happening and what they have to solve in order to get back to their regular selves. It's quite interesting how does someone come up with this idea? Not the switcheroo thing, but the actual thing that happened in the end. Also, this has a very important discussion on devices and certain machineries that are trying to replace what we do as human beings. And I found that very profound in the context of Yumi's world. And yeah, I thought this was very well done. This is for sure one of the standouts for the month of June for me personally. I enjoyed this one a lot. I have a feeling that I wanted to say something else about this, and then my mind just got derailed, I guess. This is what happens when you don't take notes when reading. Okay, I remembered. So this book is shorter, like on the shorter side for Brandon Sanderson. This is only 350 pages, and when we got near the end, the narrator had to almost like give us this download, but in a telling way and not in a showing way. And I think that could have been very easily handled by just like making this a bit longer, which is something weird for me because I don't really wish books to be longer. I wish them to be shorter sometimes. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. But yeah, I'm very happy that I read this, and I enjoyed this a lot in June. Next up, I have read Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V. Schwab. And let me tell you, I was very nervous for this book. I guess I should put my phone down, but I was very nervous because she said in an interview prior to this book actually being published that Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil is in the same universe as Eddie LaRue. You have this very loose fantastical world in which magical beings or like magical creatures exist, but you don't actually have a magic system. They just exist, and then she explores kind of the human condition or like the monstrous condition of these characters. And I was not a big fan of Eddie LaRue, but I'm very happy to report that I loved Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. I just like how V. Schwab chose to tell us this story. We are following these three vampires that are loving. Well, it's not actually love, it's more so like an obsession. Like, you know, when you think that you love someone, but it's actually the obsession to be with that person rather than loving them. So you have these three characters who are quote unquote loving each other through time, and they're just like obsessing and torturing each other. When I read the plot of the book, it did sound very reminiscent of Eddie LaRue, and I was quite scared because I think that book was very drawn out and it didn't need to be as long as it was. But in Bury Our Bones, I think I just loved the characters so much and I was really invested in their life story that I didn't really care that the writing was like super flowery and embellished, and we spent a lot of time on certain things that maybe we shouldn't have, but it was just fun to experience that, I guess. The character that we are actually opening this book with is Maria, and even from the first couple of pages, I just loved so much how Maria was very driven, like she knew what she wanted and she made sure that she made everything in her power to make that thing happen. And once she got what she wanted, she just unleashed her wickedness, I guess. And it was very interesting to follow her and to see her how she transforms into this other character that I can't really name because it would be a spoiler. But Maria got me very excited for this story. I will admit that because we are alternating these three perspectives throughout the book, so we are opening the book with Maria's point of view, and then in the next chapter we are following Alice. And Alice is our modern day point of view narrator, if you will. And her point of view didn't really make that much sense to me. That was my only kind of like pet peeve, or like the thing that I didn't really like with this book, is how slow the beginning was. I think the first 100 pages or so were really slow, and it took a lot of time to understand what V. Schwab was trying to do. But once you locked that in and once you understood where the story is going, everything went so smoothly the other 400 pages. So, yeah, I'm very happy to report that I read Bury Our Bones and I really enjoyed it. This was not in my cards for this year, but nonetheless, I'm very happy with my experience reading Bury Our Bones. After Bury Our Bones, I did finally read Call Me By Your Name by Andre Aciman. I had this on my TBR for quite a while, and the reason for which I kept postponing this book is because I already saw the movie like many times and I already knew what the story was and where it was going, and I didn't really rush to get to this, but yeah, I read it finally, and it's just as heartbreaking as the movie is, let me tell you. So, if you don't know what this book and what the movie is about, because you see here the main two characters from the movie, I actually don't really like when books do that, like when they use the movie promotional material for the book, but I think this one looks pretty good. The whole book, we are in the point of view of Elio. Elio's parents have this like huge house on the Italian Riviera, and it is pretty much their family tradition to offer free housing in this house for students that are helping Elio's father. And this time around, they are housing Oliver. And there's a pretty big age gap between Elio and Oliver, because Elio is 17 and Oliver is supposed to be like 23, 24, something like that. And they spend the whole summer together in this house, obviously alongside Elio's parents. And Oliver kind of helps Elio navigate his late coming of age and his sexuality. Yeah, it's just so beautifully written, and I think it's also because I did see the movie so many times that every single time I was reading a description, I could actually like vividly picture the movie and that like very dreamy color correction that they did in the movie. I really like that a lot. So I don't actually know if it's the book that's so well written that it makes you picture those things, or it's because I previously saw the movie so many times. And yeah, as I said, this is a book about self-discovery and intimacy and just coming of age. And I actually don't remember if the actual ending of the book is the same as in the movie, but from what I remember from the movie, I don't think it is. So yeah, this was Call Me By Your Name. Did I read this month? So after Call Me By Your Name, I read a book that I apparently forgot I read in June, and that is Winging It With You by Chip Pons. So this is a romance book. I don't really know why I read this. I guess I saw like a picture of it on Instagram or something. This was fun in the moment, but as you could tell, I don't really remember what happened in this book. We are following Asher, who was supposed to participate in this reality TV competition. It's almost like Survivor, from what I could gather from the book, with his current boyfriend. And his boyfriend, for many years, decided to break up with him at the airport just before they took this flight to film this reality TV competition. And while Asher is at this airport bar, he encounters our second character and our love interest, Theo, who is a pilot, but he just got forced into taking some days off from work just because he works a lot, and the airline company that he works for is just like worried for his mental well-being because he works a lot, and they decide to participate in this reality TV competition together. There's this whole like fake dating trope, and I'm sure you can pretty much picture what happens in the book afterwards. What I've seen from my very limited knowledge of romance books so far, all of them seem to have this third act breakup. And with some of them, the breakup makes sense, but with other ones, it doesn't really. And in this book, it doesn't really make sense. Like, it just, I couldn't picture why they wouldn't communicate through all of that. It was fun, but as I said, not that memorable for me personally. Throughout the month of June, I also kept reading from this poetry collection called Poems for Tortured Souls, selected by Liz Eisen. If you couldn't guess from the title, this is inspired by Taylor Swift's Eras. And we have here folklore, love, which is lover, heartache, revenge, and peace. So all of these poems are trying to center on certain themes or feelings that are explored in Taylor Swift's albums, and some of the poems I think were really suited for that specific era, but other I just thought they were kind of there. I don't really know how I should talk about the poetry collection because I don't read that much poetry, and I always find it hard to review collections like these when the actual poems were not meant to be in the same book, if that makes sense, or they were not written with that thought in mind. So yeah, this is like something nice to have, maybe a nice gift for someone who likes Taylor Swift's music and also poetry, or just like a coffee table book or stuff like that. But yeah, I don't really have any other thoughts about this. It was just fine, but it didn't make an impression on me or anything like that. In one of the other June reading vlogs, I also read The Listeners by Maggie Stiefvater. I think this is the UK cover because pretty much everywhere on the internet I saw the US one, the one with the stairs. So I was quite surprised when I saw this cover at the local English bookstore, and I decided to buy this one because it was, first of all, cheaper, and I really liked the colors that were chosen, and also the illustration on the front of the book. So this was my first Maggie Stiefvater book. After reading it, I felt a bit disappointed, just because before I went into this, I kind of had the impression that this is going to be like obviously a literary historical fiction, but also with this layer of just strong magical realism, and that was just not the case. The magical realism element was very, very subdued and vague and almost not there. It was just like this gigantic metaphor that was never really addressed or explained by the ending of the book, which felt quite underwhelming for me personally. When it comes to the writing, I really, really liked how atmospheric this book was. When I read certain passages, I could clearly envision the mountains that were surrounding this hotel that I will talk more about in a second. But when I read certain passages, I could clearly see how these characters looked and what they were surrounded by and stuff like that. So that was one of the things that I really appreciated about this book. My biggest gripe was with the pacing because this was almost painfully slow, and I did wish to DNF this, I think, 2 or 3 times because I was just kind of bored, I guess. But yeah, this book, I'm not saying that it is bad because it's definitely not. It was just not for me, and I didn't really enjoy it as much as I thought I would. Let me tell you a bit what this is actually about. So, this book is set in World War II, and the main kind of setting for the action, even though nothing really happens in the book. The setting for our action is the Avalon Hotel that is situated deep in the Appalachian Mountains, and this is a luxury hotel. June, our main character, or one of our main characters, she is the general manager of this hotel pictured on the cover. One day, June is pretty much blindsided by some FBI agents that are showing up at the Avalon Hotel unannounced, and they are basically requesting her to house some like almost political refugees because of the war that's happening. And these political refugees are, the majority of them, not really good people. They're Nazi sympathizers and stuff like that. And she obviously doesn't really want to do that. So she's just refusing. She doesn't want to do it, and she tells that to the FBI agents. But what she doesn't know is that the son of the owner of the hotel, his name is Edgar, he made a deal with the FBI that she was not aware of. June and Edgar had a fling going on a couple of years ago, and she's very mad at him because he made this decision without consulting her and without informing her about the FBI in time. And things are kind of escalating from here with June. She also has 3 sausage dogs that are very cute, and they're popping up in the story from time to time. But then, other than June and Edgar and their kind of situationship, we are also following one of these FBI agents. His name is Tucker, and we don't really know that much about him at the beginning of the story, but the more we read about him and the more we read in his POV, we actually understand that he has some ties to this town and to the mountains, to the water. And obviously, those things are going to come to play later in the book. There's this supposed layer of magical realism. It's not really. It's about the water that's springing from these mountains. It's supposed to have magical properties. That was the other thing that I was quite disappointed about with this book. I wanted to focus more on that element of the story. It is what it is. So yeah, this was The Listeners by Maggie Stiefvater. Even though I'm not like a huge fan of this book, I still want to read Maggie Stiefvater's The Raven Cycle because I did not get to that series yet, and I know it was very popular. It still is. I'm curious to see how her writing is in a more like YA fantasy setting than historical fiction type of thing. So yeah, moving along to the last 2 books that I read in June, and I'm going to discuss about these 2 books together because they are part of a duology. These are the House of Salt and Sorrows and House of Roots and Ruin by Erin A. Craig. And I don't actually know what rating I gave to these on Goodreads, but I'm pretty sure both of them are 3 stars. Yeah, both of them are 3 stars. Okay, I'm just going to hold up this book because the second one is a bit heavy. So this duology is very loosely inspired by the 12 Dancing Princesses folktale, fairy tale, whatever it is. And the main thing that I didn't really enjoy in this first book is that we didn't subvert that fairy tale expectation almost. Like with a fairy tale, when you start reading it, you already know who the villain is and who is doing everything that's happening in that specific fairy tale or in that specific book. And I'm quite disappointed that we didn't take some liberties with that so that we could have explored some other possibilities, let's say, for the main villain of the story. Other than that, this is a YA series. For me personally, like, I still enjoy reading YA, as you could probably already tell from the other videos here on the channel, but this specific duology felt very young YA to me personally. But with that out of the way, so the main plot of the first book, at least, is we are following this main character, Annalie, and Annalie had 11 other sisters because there are 12 in total, but some of her sisters died tragic deaths. Also, her mother died. So now everyone from their island thinks that these sisters are cursed. Annalie is trying to convince herself that there's no curse and she's not going to die, but obviously she also thinks about her dead sisters and her mother, and she's trying to come up with a logical explanation for everything that's happening. This book actually starts with a funeral scene because one of her other sisters died and they were all attending this sister's funeral, and Annalie has very strong feelings when it comes to what happened to this sister that just passed away, because everyone seems to believe that she just fell off of a cliff, but Annalie is almost convinced that someone tried, or not tried, but someone murdered her sister. So throughout this whole book, Annalie is investigating the strange circumstances in which her sister died, and she's just discovering some bigger things than this death, let's say, by the end of the book. And we're back. My battery just died. Okay, so that was the first book. And then the second book, which I will not tell you too much about because I don't want to spoil anything that happened in the first one. But in the second book, we are following one of these sisters, one of these younger sisters, as she is commissioned to paint a portrait of the son of a duke. And things are not going that well for her, let's just say. In terms of just plot and in terms of characters and what happened, I tended to like this one more, the second one, than the first one. As I said, the first one was just like very predictable. I didn't really like who the villain of the story turned out to be because I was thinking from the beginning, oh, this character has to be the villain, and I didn't want that to be true, and it was. And yeah, I didn't really enjoy that much. But this one to me felt more unique because we kind of lost that fairy tale inspiration almost. And also this second one is just full of beautiful descriptions of flowers and vegetation and stuff like that. And I did really enjoy the setting of this, and also the majority of the plot, which I thought went in a like darker direction than the first book. So yeah, these are my thoughts on the Sisters of the Salt duology. And that pretty much concludes today's video. Thank you all for staying with me until the end. I know this was a bit chaotic. As I said, in June I've been kind of all over the place. In July, I'm happy to report though that everything seems to go smoother. Let's say I'm enjoying a lot of the books that I'm reading. I just finished Paladin's Grace this morning and I immediately started Paladin's Strength. So I got a bit derailed from my TBR, but I do hope that I will be able to read all of the books that I put on this month's TBR, because as you could tell, June was a bit of a struggle bus. But yeah, please let me know in the comments down below what was your favorite read from June. If you are reading anything exciting this month, I would like to know that. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Like, subscribe, dislike if you didn't like this video. I don't know. But yeah, I'm gonna see you in a new video soon here on the channel. Bye everyone.